Hey guys, I'm Charity from A Loop and a Hook, and today I wanted to film a video that's been a little while in the making. It should have been done a little bit sooner, but things have been a little bit busy around here, so I haven't gotten the chance to actually sit down and film videos recently. But today we're going to be talking about our apartment, where we moved to, and all different things like that. I had some of you guys ask me some questions about moving, and I'm going to go ahead and answer that, give a little more details. So for those of you who didn't watch one of my last videos, it was a couple of months ago now, we did end up moving into a new apartment, and the new apartment is much bigger than what we had before. There's multiple rooms instead of like our old apartment where there's only 3. Overall, it's just a much better situation for our family than what we were in before. So this apartment is really nice, and not necessarily in the fact of the amenities that it has or how it looks. It's really nice because it gave us space, which we didn't have before, and that's something that's very valuable. So somebody asked us what were some of the top motivators for us wanting to move, and why did we choose to move. And ultimately we were okay with where we were living. It was starting to get a little bit tight because it was only 1 bedroom, and there really was no separate room that you could make as a makeshift bedroom for Caitlin, which was difficult because she was getting to the point where she would go to bed, and then when we came in to go to bed, we'd wake her up, and it just was not conducive for really anybody's sleep. And sleep's really important, so that was like one of the biggest things. But also, we didn't have any storage in our old house, which made it very difficult for, organizing, and especially when you have a baby, there's a lot of things that come with having a baby, and I didn't have the room to store them. The best word to describe what I had done with everything was kind of Tetrised it in the apartment to make it work, and at least make it semi-functional and livable, even though it was not really overly good. But because of that, I really couldn't let Caitlin go out and play anywhere. So she had one really big playpen, play area that she had all her toys in, and that's where she spent most of her time awake when she wasn't with me. But it just wasn't very conducive to her developmentally because she was, in a playpen. She was in a confined space a lot of the time, and that was because there were no solutions for storing things, so she would have gotten into things, and it just was not overly safe for a baby to be like wandering around. And so that definitely was one of our biggest reasons for getting or looking for a new apartment. And we had started looking online, but apartments in our area are pretty expensive just because we're in a very populated area. The housing market here is just absolutely crazy, but everything's really expensive. And where we were living before was almost the max amount that we could spend on an apartment, and even finding an apartment like that for the same amount would have been nigh impossible. So, we were looking, but nothing had come up yet. So it just kind of was a wait and see sort of game. And then another reason for moving, obviously, kind of like I've mentioned already, but was so that we would have more storage, more space to spread out. We weren't constantly living with stuff everywhere. And I know a ton of you have said, why don't you get rid of stuff? Why don't you stop buying stuff? you know, things like that. And well, yes, that is part of the problem, and you know, we've been working on that. Even when we were in our old apartment, we were working on it. For the way that we live, I couldn't justify getting things, using them, and then getting rid of them, and then probably having to buy them again. You know, especially with baby stuff. If I knew that I was going to need something and I could find it for significantly less, for me, that was worth storing it or having it take up space. And it was not conducive for living. So I know people are going to be like, well, you should have gotten rid of stuff. You shouldn't have had as much as you did. We did go through and get rid of stuff. I decluttered so much stuff, and I got it to the point where I made it work. But if anything else came in, it upset the equilibrium and more stuff had to go out. So those were really like our biggest reasons for wanting to find a new place to settle down in. So I just kind of touched on this, but somebody asked, did we just declutter stuff as we packed? And is the new place bigger or smaller than our previous apartment? So place is much bigger. It has 3 bedrooms. Well, I'll get into more about that in a little while, but it has 3 bedrooms. It has a nice living room, a giant kitchen, and 2 bathrooms. So that's really nice, especially having the 2 bathrooms when we only had 1. That's just really nice. But when we were packing, we kind of packed everything in 2 days and moved in 2 days. I didn't really pre-pack because there was no place to really pre-pack anything. If I pre-packed stuff, it would really mess things up in the house, and that was not going to work for me. So we packed everything like the same day as we moved in, and then there was a little stuff that we didn't get the day before that we had to get the next day. But overall, we packed everything same day. So I didn't really declutter when I was moving. I did get rid of stuff after we moved, and while I was unpacking, but also about a month, 2 months before we moved, I had gone through and decluttered a ton of stuff. So, you know, there had been decluttering going on before we moved. It just, when we moved, it was not conducive for decluttering. It was just everything got shoved into boxes, bags. We actually ran out of boxes. So it was just everything just kind of got scooped up and then dumped into our new apartment. And then I had to go from there and sort everything out. But we are mostly unpacked. I mean, it's 4 months later. I think we're almost completely unpacked. There might be 1 or 2 boxes somewhere I haven't gotten to. But, you know, this place has been so much better for space, for organization, really for everything. So somebody else asked if our apartment was something else. And so the building that we're in has been a lot of things throughout the years. It used to be an old town garage. It used to be a real estate school. It used to be a construction office. There were a lot of things that were in this building before we moved in. So yes, it was something else. It still kind of is an office. And like I had mentioned with the bedrooms, they aren't technically bedrooms because they don't have closets. And that is, I would say, one of the major downsides to where we moved was that there aren't closets. So that has, you know, I've had to come up with solutions for clothing and dealing with that. But overall, you know, it has not been that bad. We've made it work. I have had to go through and get rid of clothes, you know, make sure we don't have too much so that we could work with the space that we have for hanging clothes. So somebody asked us if moving is going to help save us money so that we can move into a home at some point. And yes and no. It's going to help save money, I think, in the long run. but the rent is more expensive than what we were paying before. And the reason I think it's going to help us save money in the long term is because I'm not going to be losing my sanity, because there's so much stuff everywhere and there's no systems and there's no organization. Because we have bigger space, I am able to, I have a big kitchen, which we were able to get another freezer, so when I find good deals, I can stock up on food ahead of time, unlike I was able to do in our previous place. But I think the biggest way it's going to save money in the long term is going to be just not even saving money, but my sanity, and especially my sanity, but also Colin's sanity, of like, we have a space that's bigger. We have a space where Caitlin can actually not be confined to a play area. She can go wander around. It's safe for her. So in those ways, I think it's going to save money. Also, I'm not going out and really buying stuff anymore just because I don't really want to fill up the space with more stuff, because I already did it once and I don't want to go through and do that again. So it's kind of saving money, not directly, but kind of. So I think one of the biggest questions I got about this apartment was, how did we find the apartment? And we found the apartment, well, it's actually a little bit of a longer story. So back, it was like a year ago, 9 months ago, my parents and my brother decided to both buy a office building as well as a garage area. My brother owns the garage, my parents own the office building. And the office building was just sitting vacant. Nobody was in it. They needed somebody to, they needed to rent it out somehow. It's not the most conducive for really renting out, just because of the way it's set up. But we went a couple of months and I didn't even think about even seeing if it was a possibility that we could move in to the building. But, Colin and I were talking and we're like, we could see if it's at least a possibility, if we could move in, because at that point we had already started looking for apartments and we couldn't find anything conducive to what we needed in our price range. And normally, Colin and I, we would like to not have to rent from family, because, with paying rent and anything like that, it can put stress on family relationships. And ultimately, we didn't want that to happen, because we value family relationships and we don't want to destroy them. But we eventually decided we would at least ask my parents if it would even be a remote possibility that, we could, even seeing if it was an option, something they would consider or want. And so we asked them, and a couple of days later they said, we would be fine with that. And they gave us a price, and the price was actually something that we could afford. And so after Colin and I thought about it, we did end up deciding to move into the building that my parents own. And now looking at it, it makes me much happier being here, because instead of us spending our money and our money just going to a landlord and we don't really know what happens to it, the money's going to my parents. It's staying within our family, kind of almost in a way building a generational wealth. It's not really leaving the family, it's staying in the family. And so it's worked out really, really well doing that. It also helped because mom and dad weren't sure what they were going to do with renting the building, because of the way it's set up. The bathrooms are only on one side, which is our side, but there's a whole space on the other side that ideally could be rented out separately, but there's no bathroom, which makes it very difficult to just be able to rent that. So us moving in is giving them time to figure out what they want to do. And, you know, we're here in the meantime while they're figuring that out. And also they can come and use the place, and, you know, because we're family, we don't care if they use our bathrooms. So it all worked out really, really well. So we are extremely thankful for how everything worked out, because, you know, if it weren't for my parents, I think we'd probably still be in our old apartment, which wouldn't be conducive. And yeah, so it all worked out really, really well, and I'm extremely thankful for that. So somebody did ask, what are our hopes for the future of this place? And because we're still renting, you know, there's limited what we can do to a certain extent, but because we are renting for my parents, you know, there's more liberty, because, you know, we can go to them and be like, hey, I want to do this. Are you okay with that? And most of the time they're pretty good with it. But the biggest goal, and it's something we've already actually started working on, is turning the place into like a homestead. So we currently have a bunch of animals, and we are, you know, working on getting them. Right now we have chickens, ducks, and some goats. And, you know, it's been a learning curve. It's, you know, part of why it's been absolutely crazy the past couple of months was because building a chicken coop and building pens and getting all of that situated took a lot of time. So most of our excess time was dedicated to that. When Colin wasn't working, when I wasn't working, it was just going to those things. But now we kind of have it up and running. Our hopes are to be able to, sometime this fall, be able to breed our goats so that we can get goat milk and have the baby goats, and kind of turn the goats into a way to at least subsidize the money that's going into the homestead right now. And also, our chickens are almost to the point where they're laying eggs. We got a whole bunch of batches of chickens. We started out with 8 and we're up to, I think, like 55 now. But there's a lot of chickens and they're all different stages of development. The youngest ones, I think, are like 6 weeks old. I'm not exactly sure, but somewhere around 6 weeks. And the oldest are almost 3 months. So we have... yeah, so we should be getting eggs within the next 2 or 3 months, hopefully. But then we're planning on selling those. Also, you know, paying for feed. With the ducks, the main reason we got them was because A, they are really cute, but also we wanted the duck eggs as well. And we were hoping that more hatched than did hatch. But another thing we were gonna try to do, and I don't know if that's even feasible now, but was to be able to hatch, you know, baby ducklings and chicks. We probably can do the chicks, but I don't know about the ducklings. And then there is a local store around here that has 6 times a year. It's like a farm sale where you can come in and you can sell, you know, small animals. It's not livestock, but small animals, things like that. And so we just kind of want this to be a way where we can have animals be more self-sufficient, but also have it as a way to at least pay for the feed, building them, you know, a new shed and all of that. So we're well on our way there, but it's definitely going to be a little while. So sometime soon we'll show you all that, but that's kind of been keeping us very busy lately. with, you know, getting that all ready and situated so, you know, we could take care of all that. So thank you all for watching this video. I hope this answers some of your guys' questions about moving into our new apartment. I'm hoping to start putting out more videos over the summer, but not sure if that's going to happen. We're going to definitely shoot for it though. I have a lot of upcoming work for photography, so we'll see how that goes. But yes, thank you for watching. I hope you have enjoyed it. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up, and we'll see you for our next video. Bye.